Hello, hello, and welcome to Cami's English Corner. Today, we're going to do another demo lesson of my perfect pinpoint pronunciation practice, Christmas edition. Today, we're going to do pronunciation practice with one of my favorite Christmas stories, The Night Before Christmas. This is an absolute classic. And actually, this copy of the book has been in my family for quite a while. I think this is about 50 or 60 years old. So it's pretty special to me. And I personally like to read it every December 24th on Christmas Eve, the night before Christmas. So I'm very happy to be sharing it with you all today. So if this is your first time with one of my pronunciation lessons, here's what we do. We will go through this paragraph by paragraph or page by page and talk about all the different ways to pronounce the words and connect them together so you can sound as fluent as possible, just like a native English speaker. So, without further ado, let's get started. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. Okay, let's talk about how to make this sound as natural and native as possible. So, with the, you don't really need to pronounce the whole thing, the. You can kind of just cut off the E and say the night before Christmas. With our vowel sounds like the A in all, you're going to connect it to the previous word, when all. Now with through, even though there is the GH, it still makes a vowel sound, ooh, through. So you will still connect it to the next word, through the. And again, with the, we're kind of going to take out that E and connect it. The house, the house. And again, with not and we're going to connect it because of the A. Now with not and not you can actually do sort of a D sound. Nada, nada, not a creature. So again, we're going to connect that A with the C, a creature, a creature. Now looking at was and stirring, we have the same sound, was, stirring. So with that, we're going to connect it, was stirring, not a creature, was stirring. And again, we have not and even, so we'll connect that, and we can make the T kind of a D sound. Not even, and we have the vowel again with not even and a mouse. In our next sentence, the, like we mentioned before, we can kind of drop the E. The stockings. The stockings were hung, and then by, the Y makes a vowel sound, by. And with the, remember, we're going to kind of knock off that E a little bit. The chimney. With care, in hopes that saint. So the ST is short for saint. So you're going to say the whole thing. St. Nicholas, that's Santa Claus. And we can see here with Nicholas and soon, it has that same sound. So we're going to connect it again. St. Nicholas soon would be vowel sound. So we're going to connect it, be there. Let's move on to the next page. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. let's talk about how to pronounce it. So, again, we have our the. We'll drop this. The children. And then with all. Nestled all. We're going to connect this. Nestled all, snug in. And we have our vowel again. Snug in. While visions of. Visions of. So we're going to connect the vowel as well. Visions of. And you'll notice with of, even though it's an F, it kind of makes a UV sound. Of. With danced and in, danced in. Danced in. And here with the CED in danced, this is going to make an ST sound. Danced, danced. Danced in their heads. And mama in, mama in. We're going to be connecting this a little bit as well. Mama in with our next connection, and I. We're going to be connecting that. And I in. So when we connect I in right here, it's going to make kind of an I yin. I yin. And I yin my cap. My cap. We have that vowel sound again. So we're going to connect it. My cap. Our next connection, fora. And along. A long winter's nap. Great. Let's look at the next page. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. Let's talk about it. Went out. So we're going to connect this. Went out. And then out on. Went out on. Went out on the lawn. And we have our the lawn. There arose. I know this can be a little tough because there's a lot of R's happening. There arose. There arose. But we are going to be connecting the A sound with the previous word. There arose. And here we have arose and such. So in arose, it is a voiced S, almost like a Z sound. And in such, it's the voiceless S. But we can still kind of connect it. There arose such a clatter. So we will connect it. And it's going to make kind of an SZ. There arose such a clatter. Arose such. And then here, such a, and a clatter. I sprang. So again, we're going to connect that. I sprang from my. We're going to connect from and my because they are the same sound. From my. And again, my bed because that Y has the vowel sound. To see what, to, right here. See what, to see what was the matter. And we're going to kind of drop the E. You'll notice with matter, it's going to have the D sound. Often, you'll see this with our TT, that it'll make a D sound. Matter, butter, that's a really common one. Butter, better. Sometimes the TT does sound like D. And then away to, we have this long A sound, away to the, and again we're going to drop the TH. The window I flew. So window, even though there's a W, it still makes a vowel sound. Window. So window, Y flew. When we do this, like the O transition to another vowel sound, it'll make a W. So it's kind of like we're still using that W. To the window, Y flew. So it'll be like O, Y, window, Y, window, Y. And then, of course, we're going to say, I flew. And we'll see here with flew, it also has that vowel sound. So we're going to connect it. I flew like a flash. So like and and a flash. Tore open, there's another vowel sound. Tore open, and then the shutters, we're going to connect that. And here with shutters, you'll notice that D sound again. Shutters. Shutters and threw up. Threw up. So this is our vowel sound again. Threw up. This is also a phrasal verb. Threw up is used in a few ways. Threw up in this way is pushing something up or throwing something. It can also mean getting sick. Threw up. So in the story, they're not getting sick. They're just throwing something up into the air. But also because it is a phrasal verb, you are going to say it quickly together. Threw up. And here, the sash. So we will connect that as well. Let's look at our next page. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. Let's review it. So, the moon, we have talked about this many times. We've talked about these vowel sounds. Moon on the breast. And then we have our vowel of the new fallen snow. We already know all these vowels and the thes. So with this word, luster, it actually will make an ER sound. Sometimes you'll see this in British English. The American English version is luster, but sometimes with British and American English, the RE and ER can be switched. So with American English, you'll see luster, but with British English, it's luster. It has the same pronunciation though. So with one of these vowel connections, two objects. We talked about before when we connect the O sound, two objects, it kind of makes a W. So this is going to be like two objects below. Let's look at the word miniature. So it looks like miniature. It isn't wrong to say it like this, but to sound more natural, you can just cut off that A. Miniature. And you'll also notice that the TU makes a CH. So it'll sound like miniature. And again, we see here the ST with Saint. And instead of saying Saint Nicholas, they just shortened his name to Nick. Saint Nick. Because it rhymes with quick. It's a poem after all. Let's look at the next page. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. So we already know our vowel connections and thes, so let's focus on a few different things. With whistled, even though there's a T, and ignore it. It isn't whistled, 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 not whistled, whistled. With comet, it's sort of that karate chop. So we aren't going to say comet and continue pushing the air out. Your tongue in your mouth will still make the T shape, but you aren't going to continue pushing out the sound. Comet, comet. So that will just be stopped. Comet. With Cupid, you will not do this kind of karate chop. With the voiced D, you do want to continue it. Cupid, Cupid. So with voiceless T, comet. With voiced D, Cupid, Cupid. So you will continue. With Blitzen, Blitzen, it's also that kind of karate chop T. So you're going to sort of cut it. Blitzen, Blitzen, instead of Blitzen, Blitzen. Let's continue. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. So let's talk about how to make it sound natural. On this page, we have a lot more of that karate chop sound. So looking at that, as leaves that before, we're going to kind of chop it. That. Same with meet. When they meet with an obstacle, and with mount to, they have the same sound. So we're going to connect it. Mount to the sky, mount to the sky. Here with top, house top. This is going to be that same sort of karate chop sound that we did with T. Top. Instead of top, top, top. So that will also kind of be cut. Top. To the house top. With the P sound, you really do need your lips to come together. Top, top. You do not want to make an F sound like F. Lips come together. Here again, we have saint, saint, and this time they're doing the full name, St. Nicholas. With the K in twinkling, it's kind of the same thing with the karate chop. Instead of twinkling, twinkling. So we're going to have two syllables in it. Twinkling, twinkling. It'll almost sound like there's a G. Twinkling, twinkling. In a twinkling. Now, sometimes this ing can be a little bit tough for people. So let's look at like prancing and pawing. If the ing is hard, think of it as sort of an EEN. Prancing, pawing. Now, eventually you do want to try to get the G at the end of it, but for now, if you think about the een, that's going to be pretty close. Now you'll notice that I pronounced roof and hoof in the same way. Technically, it's not hoof, it's hoof. Hoof. So it does sound a little bit different. But because this is a poem, all of these are supposed to rhyme at the end. So yes, I pronounced it incorrectly. But for the purpose of a poem, sometimes you have to do that. But just know, it's technically hoof, hoof. Let's continue to the next page. He was dressed in all fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. Let's talk about it. So with fur, even though it's a UR sound, it does have the same pronunciation as ER, fur, fur. With clothes, I know this can be a little bit tricky because we have our TH and our S. Technically, you do want to do a little bit of a voiced TH before a voiced S sound. Clothes, clothes, clothes. But again, this can be kind of tough. So a nice little hack is to just say close, like close a door. It's going to sound close enough, especially when you say it quickly, close. And his clothes were all tarnished. His clothes were all tarnished. You can't really hear a difference. So just go ahead and say close, like close the door. With ashes, we do want to pronounce that ES at the end. So it's going to sound like shiz, ashes, ashes. With twinkled, similar to twinkling, we're going to sort of add a G sound. Twinkled, twinkled. So you can think of it as the ing, twinkled. Now this is not twinkled, twinkled. You're going to cut out that E. Twinkled. With roses, same with ashes. We are going to pronounce that ES, but it's going to sound like ziz, roses, roses. Great, let's continue. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. Let's talk about it. So we talked before about how we do that karate chop cutoff. Here's the exception. When the word is followed by a vowel sound, you will not do the karate chop. So here we have stump and of. So if it was just by itself, stump, stump. But here there's the of, stump of, stump of. Same with tight in. I would generally say tight in, but you can say tighten his teeth, tighten his teeth. Now it's still going to be quick with tight, tighten, tighten his teeth. With little, little, this also has the D sound with the T's. So a little round belly. With laughed, even though there's all these extra letters of the GH and the E, it's actually going to have just an FT sound. Laughed, laughed. One interesting thing is you see here with bowl and full, the letters are different, but it has the same ending sound. The B and the F are different, so you want to be careful of that. With B, your lips come together. Bowl, bowl. And with F, with full, you're going to kind of bite your lip. Full, full. but the ending sound is the same. First two letters are not. The second part is. With right, it's also that kind of karate chop. So you're going to cut off your air. Right. You really do want to do that cut of your air though. It should not be rye jolly old elf. It does need to cut right jolly old elf. Another kind of interesting thing you'll notice in here is how we have different EA sounds. So here with wreath, this has an EE sound, wreath, the long E. But down here with head and dread, these do not have the same sound. Both of these just have a short E sound, head and dread. You have to be careful with the EA because it has so many different sounds to it, and the only way to really know what it is by memorizing the word. Let's continue. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. Let's discuss it. With spoke, he spoke not a word. Now with this, it is kind of in between that karate chop and saying it all the way. You could say spoke not a word, but you don't want it to be too long. So he spoke not a word. And then we'll hear that karate chop again 2 times in a row with but and went. But, went. With straight and to, they have the same sound, so we're going to connect them. Straight to, straight to. With turned, you want to be careful not to say turned. It's just turned, turned. So just an ND sound, turned. Like how you would say for and, that kind of same ND, and turned. With the ing, like with laying, finger, giving, again, you can kind of think about that EEN if it's a little bit easier. Laying, finger. Now again, having the G is best, but the EEN will suffice. Let's finish this up. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team, gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night. So again, with whistle, you do not pronounce the T. Whistle, whistle. It's almost like whistle, whistle, whistle. And it's going to be the same for thistle, thistle. You won't do that T sound. And make sure with your TH that you have your tongue between your teeth. Thistle, thistle. This is kind of a weird one, but our TH and our S do have different shapes. So your tongue is between your teeth, and your tongue is behind your teeth. Thistle, thistle. Also, be careful with thistle and whistle that you're not doing an O sound for the L. I hear often whistle. That is not correct. You want to keep your mouth out. Only your tongue is going to move. Whistle, thistle. So, sometimes as a cue that I'll give to my students is to actually hold your mouth out and keep it in place so you don't do that O sound. Thistle, thistle, whistle, whistle. Okay? If you're having some problems with it, try it out. Try actually holding your mouth out to the side. It's weird, but it helps. One last thing to point out, and like I mentioned before, with British English, it's a little bit different from American English. Here it says, Happy Christmas. This is more so British English. One of my favorite examples of this is in Harry Potter, where he says, Happy Christmas, Harry, and Happy Christmas, Ron. But in American English, it is actually Merry Christmas. Another thing that you'll commonly hear in the United States is Happy Holidays, because not everyone celebrates Christmas. So if you want an alternative, just in daily conversation, you could say Happy Holidays. But for this, it's just good to know the difference between British and American English. British English, Happy Christmas. American English, Merry Christmas. So now we have finished going through and looking at all the different ways that you can pronounce this to sound fluent and like a native English speaker. So let's go through and do the mirroring practice. So with this, I'm going to read the story out loud all the way through, and you can use this as an opportunity to listen and repeat. Listen and repeat as many times as you want. But I feel like we can make this a little more festive and a little more cozy to read this excellent Christmas book. So let's try something a little bit different. Much better. Let's get started. The Night Before Christmas by Clement C. Moore. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap, when out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed in all fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his sack. And his eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod up the chimney, he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." I hope you enjoyed this Christmas edition of my perfect pinpoint pronunciation practice. And if you would like more, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also check out that link in my bio for some personal one-on-one English tutoring lessons so that I can help you with your own pronunciation and English goals. I'll see you later, and have a Merry Christmas. Bye. Mount to the what? No. No, no, no.